be saved in a JPEG format. So once you really start to work in Photoshop and do amazing things with layer masks and selections and adjustment layers, then you're going to be really looking at a TIFF file format. Let's see what happens if you go to create a TIFF or save a TIFF. We'll go to File, Save As. We're going to select this. We're going to keep the file format at TIFF. We'll hit the Save button, and like with JPEG, it's going to ask me if I want to overwrite the other file. I'm going to hit Replace because we're actually going to stop before it writes it. Under Image Compression, the first choice is None. That means that this TIFF format will apply no compression to the image. The file size will not get smaller, but we've not lost any quality. Now here's the sort of magic button. Right below it is LZW. Now this does apply some image compression, but it's a lossless compression. It will make the file size smaller where it can, but it will not throw away any image information. How it does this can only be answered by the Adobe engineers and their super secret ways of committing algorithms to pixels. But the upshot is we can get a slightly smaller file size. We're not losing any image quality. It'll be nowhere near as small as a JPEG, but every little bit can help. So you've got those two great options for TIFFs. We'll hit cancel for now. And so we've got JPEGs, we've got TIFFs. Another lossless file format is the native Photoshop file format, which is a PSD. Let's go back to File, Save As. And this time for the image, instead of saving it as a TIFF, we're going to choose, all the way at the top, the Photoshop option. Notice that in the Save As box at the top of this window, the file name is now appended with .psd. That's the abbreviation for the Photoshop file document. Now, I don't want you to be under the impression that because you're working in Photoshop, you have to save the file with a Photoshop file format. That is not true. We can think, for our purposes, of TIFFs and PSD files as being virtually identical. There's no one big advantage over the other. Everything that a TIFF can hold, a PSD can hold, and vice versa. The one advantage pointing to a TIFF, and one reason I recommend it, is that it is more universally recognized than a PSD file. Obviously, Photoshop can read PSD files, but if you have to ever open the image up in another program or place it in another program, sometimes they can't read PSD files, but the chance of programs reading TIFFs are pretty good. It's maybe not quite as universal as a JPEG, but it's a close second. Let's just cancel out of that. Those are the three file formats that we're really going to be talking about with photorealistic images. One file format that might be familiar to you web designers out there is the GIF format, .gif. One big downside, however, is that it has a very limited color palette. We talked in the first lesson about how images can hold millions of colors with all the permutations of red, green, and blue that each pixel can have. A GIF can only hold 256 colors in any given image. So if you're doing photographs or any other photorealistic images with smooth, subtle gradations, you really want to stick with either JPEGs, TIFFs, or PSDs if you want, but I'm going to recommend TIFFs for that. Let's take a look at the options we have for viewing and navigating images on screen inside Photoshop. Let's go to our Chapter 1 folder. I'm going to bring up the Open dialog box by pressing Command-O on the Mac or Control-O if you're on a PC. And we will open up for a second time the file TIFF. Now it opens up on screen in a 25% view. That's plenty for us to see the entire image. But what if we want to view this at 100%? Well, we can go up to the View menu and select Actual Pixels. This gives us our 100% view. We can see this image in all its glory. The problem now, of course, is that the image spills beyond the boundaries of our document window. To deal with that, we can use the Hand tool. Its icon is located here at the bottom of the Tools panel. It is shaped like a hand, and if you simply click and drag on the image area, you can move the image around in any direction that you want to. Pretty easy to do there. What happens if you'd like to scale back down to a smaller view? Well, the Zoom tool is located right next to the Hand tool in the Tools panel. Notice that we have a plus sign in the middle of this magnifying glass, meaning that if we click, the image will get larger, but we want to reduce it. So I'm going to show you a great shortcut. On the keyboard, hold down the Option key on a Mac, Alt key if you're on a PC, and you will see that plus turn into a minus sign. Now if we click, we simply go to lower and lower magnifications of the image. There's an option here in the options bar for the Zoom tool that I want to show you. We have a Resize Windows to Fit box. I'm going to turn it off so you can see how this works. If I zoom in with the image, you can see that the image gets larger, but the document window has stayed the same size. Now I'll turn this back on, and we're going to hold down the Option key on the Mac, Alt key on the PC to zoom out of the image, and now the document window changes along with the magnification of the image. So that's your resize windows to fit. I should point out that in an earlier lesson we turned on the application frame on the Mac. If you still have it on, I want you to go up to the window menu and deselect the application frame option in order to see this resize window effect. There's another tool up here that I'd like to show you, the scrubby zoom option. Now if this is grayed out on your computer or missing altogether, it may be that your video card does not support this feature. If that's the case, just sit back and watch me. I'm going to turn on scrubby zoom. And now if we want to zoom in, we can simply click and drag to the right. Our image enlarges. If we want to zoom out, we simply drag to the... Let's turn this off for now. Want to direct your attention to the navigator panel at the far right of the screen. Note below the image preview we have a slider, and this will change your magnification. See that red box that's on our image thumbnail? This is great when you're zoomed in at a high magnification, because if you need to navigate around the image, you simply click inside this red box and drag it around wherever you want to go. Now the super cool thing about this feature is that since you can see the entire image with this thumbnail, you can simply click to an area of the image and Photoshop will take you there right away. A very fast way to get around an image when you're in a 100% view. I'm going to go up to the View menu for now and select Fit on Screen. This is going to give us a view that fits nicely to our screen. We can also rotate images in Photoshop, and we can do that by going up to the Image menu and selecting Image Rotation. I'm going to choose 90 degrees clockwise. Our entire image is rotated. If we sent this to the printer, this is how it would print. If we save and close this file, we would reopen it and have it be in the same orientation. I'm going to undo that by going up to the Edit menu and selecting Undo Rotate Canvas. There's another option here. If we click and hold the mouse on the hand tool, we can see just below this we have a Rotate View tool. I should point out that if your Rotate View tool is grayed out, your video card may not be able to support this feature. Now let's see what this does. If we click and drag on the image, you can see that compass showing up, and we can rotate the view of the image. Now what's different about this than what we did previously? When you go up to the Image menu, you're rotating the canvas. That is a permanent change to your image. With the Rotate View tool, we are temporarily rotating the view of the image. This is not saved. We're not altering any pixels. This is just for on-screen purposes only. So if you save the file right now and open it back up, it will show up in its original orientation. The Rotate View tool can be useful if you're doing some retouching, particularly if you're using a tablet. You can get a more comfortable drawing angle. In the Options bar, we have a Reset View button, so once we're done playing with the Rotate View tool, we can simply hit Reset. Photoshop offers 3 screen modes that I want to take you through, and before I show you these, I need to give you the shortcut. If we look up here in the application bar, we have a standard screen mode, that's what we're in now, a full screen mode with menu bar, and a plain old full screen mode. The keyboard shortcut to cycle through these is the F key. So we're going to do that with the F key, and I'm going to show you why in a second. I'm going to press F once. We're now in full screen mode with menu bar. We still have our menu bar, but here's the beauty of this mode. If we select the hand tool, we can move this image freely around the entire screen. We can move it behind panels, we can move it up above there, we can move it wherever we want. Our next mode is the full screen mode, and I'll press the F key to get to this. Now we have no menu bar, no panels, no Photoshop interface, and this is precisely why we need the keyboard shortcut. There's no menu for us to click on to go back to our standard view, so I'm going to press the F key, and that takes us back into our floating document window. Now Photoshop gives us a lot of options for how to deal with multiple images open at the same time, so let's open a couple more. We'll go back to our Chapter 1 folder. We're going to select 2 files this time. So I want you to select 16-bit file, and then just below it, I want you to hold down the Shift key on the keyboard and select Fuji High Res. Both of these files will be selected. They will both be opened. Notice what's happened. We still have a single document window, but it contains 3 tabs, one for each image. And we can move among the images simply by clicking on each tab. Now, if you don't like this tabbed interface, you can simply drag an image into a floating document window. Click on the tab, drag it out until you see that outline, and you have it in a floating document window. You could also accomplish that by going up in the application bar and selecting Float All in Windows. This gives us now free floating documents for each image. I'm going to close these for now, and I want to go back to TIFF to show you one last thing. Photoshop gives us some very good visual information without having to go and open up any menus. The first place I want you to look is in the title bar right at the very top of the document window. We have a file name, we have the view percentage, we have RGB, which tells us the color mode that the image is in, and we have an 8, which tells us that this is an 8-bit image. There's a copyright symbol here to the very left that indicates that copyright information has been embedded into this file. I'm going to widen this image window by dragging down at the bottom. And down here we have pixel dimensions for the image. If I click on this triangle, we can see various elements that we can show in that window. We can see the document size. We can see the profile, what color space is attached to that image. And there are all of these choices down here, measurement scale, scratch sizes. I think you're going to find most helpful document sizes, profile, and dimensions. So you can set it to any one of those 3 and know that you can always quickly access the additional information. So we can see that Photoshop gives us a lot of ways to manage our images on screen.